Okay everyone, welcome back to round 9 of the FIA Nations Championship, driving at Catalunya in the Super GT Group 2 cars. So, Catalunya has been a little bit of a problem for me recently in the FIA races. We would have seen the Group 3 race at the start of the season. I had an issue, missed the braking point going into the hairpin, and exactly the same thing in the Group 4 race in the EU regions happened to me. In the Americas regions I was fine racing them. I didn't really have much issue. It was just whenever I got to the EU race I made an error on that braking zone. So going into this race, what I really wanted to do was fix that issue and just drive a nice consistent race from start to finish. Managed to qualify P2 with not a very good lap, to be brutally honest. I didn't hook it up. I think if you go, I'm going to leave the link to the Americas region, also the stream from that. We streamed the Americas region after doing this, and I drove a lot better in that region, to be fair. But in qualifying I beat the lap that I did on the EU region, even though it was a third lap on the tyres. The tyres were quite old, worn out a bit, and it was quite interesting to see just even with the worn wear that I was still faster with the lap that I did. So I was quite shocked at that. But in this race of 37.6 I think it wasn't a terrible lap, it just wasn't a very good lap. I did expect to get down to low 37s, didn't manage it, but still started from P2, so I was quite surprised at that. Anyway, so the aim of this, obviously some reasonably fast drivers in here. We've got Tijani in here, we've got GTA Matty in here, a very fast driver from a lot of other games as well, particularly fast on a Zeta Corsa. I really do rate him very high. He seems very good on GT Sport also. I think he's going to be a massive challenge when it comes to the next official season. I think he's a very good driver. We've got some other big names in here as well. Calster was in the lobby as well. You can see starting from just behind myself again, his usual FIA qualifying position, literally one place behind me every time we come up against each other. It seems like I'm always one place ahead of him in qualifying. It's always very close between myself and Calster. But starting from the start, first thing we want to do is get a nice start without any issues. I was fairly okay with Calster being behind me, because in FIA racing Calster is fairly clean. He keeps it nice and safe. He's not as aggressive as he is in the public lobbies. Obviously, in public lobby races, he's going to go for moves. A lot of people see it. In FIA, he's a much more sensible driver. He knows when to overtake. He's a very good driver. So what I wanted to do now was just try and... I kind of didn't want to get too close to the slipstream. You might have seen it when we were doing the... we did the practice stream, and I mentioned it in there. The loss of downforce when you're behind Group 2 cars is quite severe. So what I decided to do was kind of do a bit of short shifting. You see early upshifting to third gear there, not revving out too much. I'm doing pretty much halfway shifting, and just trying to save some fuel at the start, right from this pretty much get-go. I didn't want to burn the fuel too much. I wanted to make sure that in the pit stop phase I would have enough fuel. Now there was an option where I could stay in his slipstream in P1 and save the fuel, try and save the fuel that way and try and get a no stop done in this race. However, I think it wasn't really the best way to do it. I'd worked it out. It could be done. It depends where you start on the grid, and it depends on the race. But the way you see, he's already broke the slipstream. He's driving really aggressively from the start. I think he was revving the car out a little bit. Probably what he was doing was trying to get rid of that slipstream, and then he was going to do the fuel saving. But I thought if I just do the fuel saving right from the start, and then just try and stay around 1.5, 1.4 seconds behind, like we did with Giorgio 57, that would be great. But however, going through the chicane, and a very easy mistake to make, as you see, GTA Matty just hits the curb a little bit too aggressive on the exit, and it spins him completely round. And that was really a wake-up call to make sure that you're not... it really did wake me up to make sure that I've got to just drive this fairly sensibly. You know, that corner can wipe out your race instantly. It's so easy to make that mistake. It wasn't even like it looked like it was going to happen. He went over the curb pretty normal, and it just swung him round. So that was a little bit of a warning that you need to be sensible and take it easy at this track, as you see, trying to break that slipstream to Calster while doing the short shifting, just trying to make sure that I'm trying to pull away, but I don't want to burn too much fuel in the process. So you're going to see revving a little bit more aggressive, but not all the way to the maximum. We're going to keep this race completely on the gameplay footage with the replay camera in the top right hand corner, so you can see that as well. Obviously now we've got Calster behind, Roby behind him, and GTA Tijani. I'm not sure if the Roby driver is actually a YouTuber. It's possible. I'm not 100% sure. There is a YouTube channel with Roby F1 something, but I'm not sure if that's him or not. It's possible. But GTA Disney and P4 there, obviously pushing hard, and I think GTA Disney was on a different strategy, which we're going to see play out during this race. As you see now, broke the slipstream to Cal, so that was really important for me, because once I break that slipstream, it then means I can get back to normal fuel saving and try and keep him out of the slipstream. If he's in the slipstream, then he's going to be able to do a little bit of fuel saving. But I think, again, Calster will say about this, it's when you're in the slipstream of the car in front, at this track particularly, it was really aggressive, the loss of downforce. And he really did feel like, I felt like the tyres wore quicker, everything was wearing quicker, so it's probably more sensible to drop back a bit and just drive your own race. But also Calster is under a lot of pressure from P3. It looks like they're battling quite hard, and this is actually going to help me. If they battle and they have to go defensive and they're taking lines side by side, it's just going to help me pull away, which is good for me. So far the opening laps haven't been particularly amazing. I have to say I was very cautious on a lot of the driving in this race, because I didn't want a repeat of the Group 4 race or the Group 3 race. And to be honest, we're in the lead of this race with a nice gap now to P2, so there's no real need for 100% aggressive driving. As long as I keep it clean and try not to make any mistakes, we could be in for a nice solid round in this round 9 of the FIA Nations. And obviously I do need to make sure I pick up solid rounds, because I've only got 2 points going round so far. I haven't done many of the Nations race. I need to get a nice solid round here and then leave myself that final round in the Red Bull X 2014 to get some solid points, so that I've got the 4 point scoring rounds to put me in the top 10 hopefully in the Nations. If I get a good round in the final round, there's a possibility I could get right up there into the top 3 or 4 places, but we'll just wait and see how that goes. I'm not too sure how it'll go. The Red Bull Ring, I like the track, I like the X 2014, but I don't think I'm massively I'm not as fast as a lot of drivers in that Red Bull. But it'll be interesting to see as we go through the final sector for another time on the end of lap 3 here. And you see, just look how cautious I was in this curb. I was just really hesitant. The one thing you needed to do was just be careful when you're putting the power down, because if you put that power down a little bit too early on the curb, when the rear's still touching the curb slightly, that's when it was just going to kick the rear out. You see, we go over on a 138.4, not particularly amazing lap times. I think when you have a little look, if you want to have a little watch of the stream from the Americas regions when we drove it live, I think my lap times were straight away into the 138.0s and 138.2s on the first stint. It was fairly consistent, low 38s, and we were doing fuel saving as well. I wasn't really burning too much fuel away. I think we went in the pits with fairly similar fuel to what we did in this race as well, so it was interesting to see that I drove that quite a bit better. I still feel there's something on the American account where it's just a little bit easier to drive for me. It is really strange that every time I'm on the American account, I seem to do more consistent driving, and it's something that if it carries on, I will probably start up a new EU account and see how the handling is on that, because if the handling, it does feel different, I would obviously go with the handling that is better for my chances in terms of getting into the next FIA final. But you can see at this point now, Calster in P2, dropping down to 2.5 seconds behind. He looks like he's managed to get rid of the gap to P3 and give himself a nice bit of space, as it looks like P3 actually made a mistake on lap 4 and has dropped all the way down the order now. I think he's down there in P7, so teaching it up to P3. Calster in P2. Calster's dropped back quite a way now, over 3 seconds behind, so I don't know if he was struggling, or I think he's mentioned something about brake bias. I was actually going, I don't know what some people are doing, but some people said they were going rearwards with the brake bias. I actually preferred it to the front on -1 towards the front. That's how I drove it, and I think it suited me, it suited my driving and braking style. Other people wanted a little bit more at the rear, but I find that I don't like the rear losing grip too much. I like to have a stable car, although I like one that turns in well. I like to keep the rear fairly stable, especially in heavy braking zones, and that -1 to the front just kind of gave me the ability, especially into the really heavy braking zone, into the tight hairpin. It gave the rear a bit of stability that meant I could get on the power a little bit earlier, and that's kind of what I like. Some people obviously wanted a bit more rear bias. I'm not sure what other people were racing in this race. I haven't actually seen yet, but so far you can see driving fairly consistent. It's still in the 38. Lap times are in the 38s. They're not particularly they're not as consistent as it was in the American regions. I'll have to say that now. I think my consistency in the Americas region race was really impressive. I was actually really impressed with myself for it, because I kept my lap times pretty much banging on within a tenth of each other pretty much all the way through, and I did one really good lap where I obviously pushed a bit hard when we put the fresh tyres on, and obviously had a bit of fuel to burn. But at this stage, so he's still going through on purple sector. So what you can see now is the tyres were actually lasting okay at this track. So this is how I did know that the no stopper was possible at this. I was aware of it. I had the feeling it wasn't, if you drove the stints really well from the lead, it wasn't really as fast. It worked out faster doing the pit stop. But at the moment, I'm not driving particularly amazing. I'm driving okay, but you can see we're pulling away from Carlson. That's the important thing. I'm not aware what other people were going to be on strategy, because it was up in the air. I knew before, obviously, that it was possible. But Calcer goes in the pits at the end of lap 5, and that's going to risk putting himself in a lot of traffic. I don't know whether he comes out into traffic, but it was too risky. I did have a feeling that move might be an option, but I decided to stay out. The tyres were still in good condition. I was hitting purple sector, so if I just drive a nice clean in lap, we should still come out ahead of Calster, as there was a 3.5 second gap. He went in the pits with about 3-4% more fuel than what I did. However, that wouldn't be enough to really make up the 3.5 seconds. I think it would have been maybe a second and a half or something like that. A little bit of a moment there as we come out that right hand of the rear, twitching around, just trying to drive a little bit more aggressive on this in lap. I'm wanting to make sure that we come out the pits in P1. I've had a similar situation to this in Fuji in Group 1, where someone done the undercut and got out ahead of me. However, in this race, I think the tyres were a lot better, and the undercut wasn't probably as strong with this race because the tyres were in a little bit more better condition, and this was more of a fuel saving race really. It was more about short shifting and whether you could do it with no stopping and that, rather than the tyres. The tyres were not a massive issue in this race compared to like the manufacturer series, where tyre wear is a massive problem. As you can see now, into P2 goes Cherub, I think it is there, and we're now 7.4 seconds clear. So this is where I was kind of thinking this is looking really good, because if I come out ahead of Kausa, I'm in a good position. However, going through that corner, I have a massive moment and actually lost about a second there, where I just couldn't get on the power because I nearly lost the rear. Luckily, I saved it. Very similar to what happened to GTA Matty, where you try and get on the power and the rear just steps out randomly. So that was quite a scary moment. Luckily got away with it, but unfortunately that lost me about a second, I think it was, which was quite worrying, because I was worried where Kauster would come out as we're coming out of the pits now. You can see putting the fuel in, getting back out, and straight back onto track. Are we going to come out ahead of Calcer? This would be really interesting just to see how far ahead we are. And you can see, looking back, I cannot see Calcer. It looks like we've got another driver in front of Calcer. So Calcer's not really gained much. It looks like traffic has really cost Calcer the chance of getting a little bit closer with the undercut with the fresher tyres. But now we've got a gap of about 8 seconds to Tijani in P1 and 7 seconds to the driver in P2. So I think the driver in P2, whether he's going to stay out or not, when I seen Tijani doing that and staying out, I was pretty sure that he was on a no stopper. So I didn't want to drive massively aggressive. What I wanted to do was just keep the consistency, keep putting the laps in, and I knew that we would probably get P1, because I knew that on the final lap with the tyres, I think completely worn, I think they were going to be at least 2 to 3 seconds slower. So the final lap, you'd just gain such a big chunk, and it'd be quite easy to pass with a fresh set of tyres on. As you can see now, driving fairly smoothly, not risking too much, just trying to keep it nice and calm. That's the thing. I didn't want to take all the life out of the tyres. I just wanted to keep it nice and smooth. Obviously, still doing a bit of fuel saving. I didn't over fuel too much. I just put enough fuel to drive it a little bit more aggressively, because I didn't want to get undercut by Kaus. You can see that gap now, just under 3 seconds to Kaus there. So he has gained a bit, but then my tyres are going to be in better condition now all the way to the finishing line. So even if he's got more fuel than what I've got, I should be okay to get to the finishing line ahead of Calcer. And now P2 goes in the pits with 21% fuel, so he's clearly doing a pit stop strategy there. He's gone in the pits, new set of tyres, obviously fuel on board, and now we've got to just go about catching up Tijani and seeing if we can get into the lead of this race. So this is actually looking like a very similar situation to the Group 4 race, where we had to catch up the leader. And in that race, I made a little bit of an error. I got a little bit too aggressive. I could have been a bit more patient. But this race, it should be a little bit easier. Obviously, I'm going to have the fresher tyres with more fuel on board and able to drive a little bit more aggressive coming out the corners and going into the braking zone. So it'll be fairly interesting to see how fast we gain. You can see the delta constantly going down by nearly a tenth. In all the traction zones and the cornering, we're just able to get on that power that little bit early with them fresher tyres, and obviously able to rev it a little bit more. Obviously, I'm still not revving it fully, because I want to make sure I've got the fuel at the last few laps when it's going to be important. And obviously I don't want to make any stupid errors by putting too much throttle down, spinning up the rears, losing control of the car on the curb. So keeping it fairly smooth at the moment. You can see I'm not really driving massively aggressive. I'm just trying to keep the car under control. The car's not moving around too much. It's all quite stable at the moment, going through that on a personal best, but still not a particularly amazing lap at this stage. When you compare this lap to on the Americas servers, I think on this same lap I did, because I was in the lead by quite a bit at this stage in the Americas, and I just decided to push and try and get the fastest lap of the race. I did a 1:37.6. I think that's good. This lap, I think, as we go over the line, is a 1:38.2 if I remember rightly. Let's just have a little look as we're coming out this final corner, putting the power down. We're now 6.2 seconds behind Tidgney, so gaining all the time. Go over the line on a 1:38.5. So actually, that lap, I think the last sector wasn't particularly good. So that lap was actually nearly a second slower than what I did on the same lap on the other servers. I think this lap ended up being a bit better. I think I didn't really hook that lap up properly, but you can see I'm just trying to keep it calm and smooth. That's the important thing. Trying to learn from the mistake that I did in the Group 4 race, where obviously I was pushing hard at this stage, but then when we did catch up P1, I was a little bit too aggressive and made a bit of a silly error when we came to the overtaking phases. We're coming through this right-hander, a corner that can really catch you out. That's why I tend to early upshift into 4th gear, because 1, it saves you a bit of fuel, and 2, it just dulls that power down a bit, gives the car a little bit more traction and just keeps it a little bit more settled. And again, you can just see how much time we're gaining over GTA Tidgney and P1. Obviously, he's pushing really hard with them tyres. The tyres are going to start wearing out. Doing a very good job, though, I must have to say, to make that strategy work for himself. He came from P5 and he's now in the lead of this race with 4.4 seconds in the lead. And the good thing for him is I'm nearly 4 seconds ahead of Calster, so he's got a really comfortable margin that if I do get past him, he's still got a big comfortable margin to obviously P3, who is Calster. So it's looking good for GTA Tidgney. Do remember, you can check out Tidgney's channel on YouTube. He also does a lot of live streaming of FIA races, a lot of good driving school videos as well. So please make sure you check his channel out as well. I do advise it. I do like to obviously recommend other people that I enjoy watching Tidgney as well. Very good YouTuber. So make sure you give his channel a like and subscribe as well. And you can see in front, we're gaining on him 3.4 seconds clear, and it's getting closer every lap. So just trying to push, and I do enjoy racing Tidgney. I think we're fairly evenly matched on the game. Very clean driver, very smart, very clever driver when it comes to the track racing. So it's always a great battle whenever we get close to each other on the track. And we have actually got another race as well in the manufacturers, where it was again myself and Tidgney battling on that one. So it's going to be really good to upload that one as well. You can see now getting that gap under 2.5 seconds nearly, and this is looking more and more likely like the pass is going to be on before the end of the race, because I know at this phase his lap times we're probably going to be hitting the 140s, 141 mark eventually. My laps are still on, you see the previous lap of 138.2, so just trying to keep it nice and smooth. Now you can see I know that I'm going to catch him, so now this is the point where I need to learn from the previous error in the Catalunya Group 4 race, where I went for that really aggressive overtake, but I did want to get past him as soon as possible, because one thing I didn't want to happen is to get caught up into a battle with Tidgney, start losing time. Obviously Tidgney is going to be a lot slower than the fresher tyre drivers, so if I start losing 2.5 seconds a lap, Calster would have been on me within pretty much a lap and a half, and we've only got 2 laps to go after we go over the line now. So this is why you can see I'm driving fairly aggressive, but I'm not like taking risks. I'm just trying to keep it nice and smooth at the same time, but getting reasonable lap times in. Getting on the power nice and early on that final corner, and now you're going to see the difference. You can see now I can rev this car out a little bit more down the straights. You can see the delta still coming down, where Tidgney's obviously having to put that mixture into maybe level 2 or 3 or something like that, especially in the corners. He's probably using level 2 mixture, just trying to eke out that fuel every little bit that he can, and then saving it probably for what you tend to do is if you're in the lead of a race, you always want to try and save your fuel for when you're going to need it in the battle. So you want to save it for the straights and use one mixture there, but you can see he's really struggling with the tyres on that car. It's going to be a real battle now to see if we can get past him. I kind of knew that it would be a lot, looking how much understeer he was getting and how much issue he was having on traction. I kind of expected it to be quite an easy pass, to be brutally honest. Go wide there to try and widen the line into this corner, because I knew he had have to go defensive, and then that enables me to get on the power a little bit early. And you can see we're going to gain under traction, gaining under Citroen. I have a little look on the inside there and fake it, go back down the right hand side, give myself a nice line into the corner. He goes deep into the corner, then I'm able to go around the outside and get on the power a little bit early, and you can see the extra traction from the tyres gives me a fairly comfortable overtake and puts myself into the lead of this race again. And now it's going to be fairly comfortable from now, because we've got the fresher tyres, we've got the most fuel, and I can just push now to the end reasonably hard without taking too many risks and try and just get over the line in P1. You can see as Tidgeney's now dropping back, you can see through the corners how much Tidgeney will lose now. Nearly a second behind already. So all the corners and braking zones, and particularly traction zones, that's where the no stopper was really costly on time. Is when you wanted to put the power down, you'd lose so much time on acceleration because it just doesn't have the traction with getting the power down. Just look at that delta now, gone up to 1.2, then nearly 1.3. It's just a constant increase, because when the tyres are old, they lose so much. Your car tends to lose a lot of acceleration and initial traction. But Tidgeney doing a very good job. Credit to him for the strategy that he did. I was aware of it before going in, so I kind of knew that someone might try it. And when Tidgeney did pit on lap 6, that's when I knew that that's the strategy he's clearly going to go for. So I kind of just had to keep the consistent lap times coming. It wasn't particularly slow lap times. They just weren't particularly on fire. Like when I was in the Americans region, my lap times were much better. I think the overall finishing time was quite a bit better as well. We'll have a little look as we go over the finishing line, but you can see now over 2 seconds now. But Tidgeney looks like he's got a comfortable gap to Calster in P3. It looks like Calster might not be gaining as much as I expected. I kind of thought Calster would have caught up to the rear of Tidgeney, but so far it doesn't look like he's managed to get close enough, as we're coming midway through on the final lap. And it looks like a comfortable gap there for Tidgeney. It looks like he's got P2 covered, so a really good drive from him, coming from P5 and getting his way all the way up to P2 really. But for myself, so far it's been really good. Going into that braking zone, that has really cost me, and managing to do it without making a mistake, that was really important for me to get this race done and just try and get that out of my mind, because obviously having it happen 2 times in the same season kind of made me a little bit weary of that corner. But now I've got this race done, no issues. Only real issue was on the in lap. He nearly got caught out by that curb, but that was really easy to do. It was something that was just a little bit random sometimes when you put the power down, but managed to do the whole race fairly comfortably without making too many errors. Not a particularly amazing finishing time. It could have been a lot faster. As you see, we go over the line. I think it was 20 minutes and 9 seconds, and when we compare that to the American server result, I think we did it in 20 minutes 05 flat. So 4 seconds faster on the American server, when I was just pushing a little bit harder every lap, and the consistency was a little bit better. So the potential was there to go a lot faster, but still happy to get that win and get the most points possible out of this race. I think it was 2,400 or something points. We'll have a little look at it in a minute. But first, let's just have a little look at that replay of the overtake going into the second to last lap, going past Tidgeney. So you can see that it pretty much starts from this point where Tidgeney runs a little bit wide there with his loss of grip, and then he has to go defensive. So I go really wide there to give myself a nice wide line into the corner. I know he's going to be struggling on traction, as you can see there, so I know now he's going to think he might have to go defensive. So I have a little look up the inside. I was not going to go for that move, so I go straight back over to the right hand side, give myself a nice line into the corner. Tidgeney goes in a little bit too deep, obviously struggling with the tyre wear, and then it's a fairly easy pass on the outside from there, with the extra ability that the car's got for myself with the new tyres on. But a fairly nice overtake still, and a really enjoyable race, and we come away with 2,437 points. So overall, good result, another solid result. That's what I needed really from these races, is just pick up solid results, because I'm only doing 4 races this season in the Nations. I didn't do too many of the road car races, so enjoyable. Another enjoyable race on the FIA European servers, and we'll be back with more of these races. Hopefully uploading the manufacturers race tomorrow, which is another really fun race, a race that I was not looking forward to, as a lot of people will know from the stream practice that we did. I just really was not looking forward to that track. Not a track I really like, and a track that I was pretty much going into thinking a top 5 and I'll be really happy with, because I just couldn't get to grips with it. So anyway, that'll be uploaded tomorrow. Another really good race with Tidgeney in there as well. So Tidgeney did a great job there as well. A massive shout out to him for that result into P2 from P5. Very good fuel saving lesson. So do check out his channel. Give himself a subscription as well. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.